Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 on November 24, 1971, carrying a briefcase and wearing a business suit. Shortly after takeoff from Portland, he passed a note to a flight attendant claiming he had a bomb. Cooper demanded $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. The airline complied. After the plane landed and passengers were released, Cooper ordered the crew to fly toward Mexico City at minimum speed with the landing gear down and flaps lowered. Somewhere over the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, he opened the rear air stair and jumped into a November rainstorm. Despite one of the most extensive manhunts in FBI history, Cooper was never found. In 1980, a boy discovered $5,800 of the ransom money along the Columbia River, but no other physical evidence has surfaced. The FBI officially closed the case in 2016 after following thousands of leads across 5 decades. Cooper's true identity, whether he survived the jump, and where he might have landed remain unresolved. James Earl Ray escaped from Missouri State Penitentiary on April 23, 1967, hiding in a bread truck leaving the facility. 1 year later, he assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis. Ray fled the United States using a Canadian passport under a false name and traveled through Canada, the United Kingdom, and Portugal before being arrested at London's Heathrow Airport in June 1968. He pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to 99 years. In 1977, Ray escaped again from Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in Tennessee alongside 6 other inmates by scaling a wall. He remained free for 3 days before being recaptured in the surrounding wilderness. While Ray himself was found, the question of whether he acted alone has never been satisfactorily answered. Ray recanted his guilty plea, claiming he was a patsy in a larger conspiracy. He died in prison in 1998, but the possibility of undiscovered accomplices, financiers, or coordinators continues to fuel investigations and lawsuits. The full network behind King's death may never be known. Lord Lucan, a British aristocrat and professional gambler, disappeared on November 7, 1974, the same night his children's nanny, Sandra Rivet, was bludgeoned to death in the basement of the family home in London. Lucan's wife was also attacked but survived. She identified her husband as the assailant. Hours after the murder, Lucan drove to the home of a friend in Sussex, where he made several phone calls but offered conflicting explanations. He left the house before dawn and was never seen again. His car was found abandoned in New Haven, a port town, with bloodstains matching Rivet's blood type. The presumption was that Lucan had fled the country or died by suicide, possibly by drowning. Despite hundreds of alleged sightings in Australia, Africa, India, and South America, none have been substantiated. In 1999, a death certificate was issued, and in 2016, probate was granted on the assumption of death. Lucan's son inherited the title, but no body has ever been recovered. The case remains one of Britain's most enduring vanishing acts. Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin executed one of the only successful escapes from Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary on the night of June 11, 1962. The 3 men spent months widening ventilation grates in their cells using sharpened spoons and an improvised drill. They crafted dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and human hair to fool guards during bed checks. After reaching the roof through a utility corridor, they descended to the shore and launched a raft made from over 50 raincoats that had been vulcanized using steam from the prison pipes. The official FBI conclusion was that the men drowned in the frigid, turbulent waters of San Francisco Bay. However, no bodies were ever recovered. In 2013, the San Francisco Police Department received a letter allegedly written by John Anglin, claiming all 3 men survived and that he was willing to negotiate a surrender in exchange for medical care. The letter's authenticity was never confirmed. The U.S. Marshal Service continues to investigate the case and will not close it until each man would have reached the age of 100. Assata Shakur, born Joanne Kezimard, was a member of the Black Liberation Army when she was involved in a shootout on the New Jersey Turnpike on May 2, 1973. New Jersey State Trooper Werner Forster was killed, and another trooper was wounded. Shakur was also shot twice during the incident. She was arrested and later convicted of first-degree murder in 1977, sentenced to life plus 33 years. On November 2, 1979, 3 armed members of the BLA entered the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women, took 2 guards hostage, and freed Shakur. She lived underground for several years before resurfacing in Cuba in 1984, where she was granted political asylum by Fidel Castro's government. In 2013, Shakur became the first woman placed on the FBI's Most Wanted Terrorists list, with a reward of up to $2 million. Cuba has refused all extradition requests, treating her as a political exile rather than a fugitive. She reportedly still lives in Havana, where she has given occasional interviews but remains beyond U.S. jurisdiction. Félicien Kabuga was one of the key financiers of the 1994 Rwandan genocide, which resulted in the deaths of an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Kabuga, a wealthy businessman, allegedly used his resources to import hundreds of thousands of machetes distributed to Hutu militias. He also owned Radio Television Libre de Mil Collines, a station that broadcast propaganda encouraging mass killings. After the genocide, Kabuga became one of the most wanted men in the world, indicted by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Despite a $5 million bounty, Kabuga evaded capture for 26 years. He moved through Kenya, Switzerland, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, reportedly using fraudulent documents and a network of financial and political protectors. In May 2020, French authorities arrested him in a suburb of Paris, where he had been living under an assumed name. At the time of his arrest, he was 84 years old. While Kabuga himself was eventually found, the extensive network that sheltered him for over 2 decades was never fully prosecuted. Semion Mogilevich is a Ukrainian-born organized crime figure whom the FBI has described as the most dangerous mobster in the world. He is wanted for his alleged role in a multimillion-dollar scheme to defraud investors in a Canadian company called YBM Magnex International in the 1990s. Beyond financial crimes, Mogilevich has been linked to arms trafficking, drug smuggling, prostitution, and contract killings across Europe and the former Soviet Union. He was placed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list in 2009. Despite his notoriety and the international manhunt, Mogilevich has never been apprehended by Western authorities. He is believed to live openly in Moscow, where he maintains businesses and continues to operate through legitimate fronts. Russia does not extradite its own citizens to the United States, rendering American warrants ineffective. Mogilevich was removed from the FBI's Most Wanted list in 2015, not because the case was resolved, but because it no longer met the programmatic criteria for inclusion. He remains active, untouchable, and entirely beyond the reach of prosecution. Matteo Messina Denaro was the Sicilian Mafia boss who evaded capture longer than any other major Cosa Nostra leader. He became a fugitive in 1993 after ordering bombings that killed anti-mafia prosecutors Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, as well as attacks that killed 10 people in Rome, Florence, and Milan. Denaro was sentenced in absentia to life imprisonment for dozens of murders, including the strangulation of a pregnant woman and the acid dissolution of a child. For 30 years, Italian authorities pursued him without success. He communicated through a series of coded letters and pizzini, maintaining control over mafia operations in western Sicily, even while underground. In January 2023, Italian carabinieri finally arrested him at a private clinic in Palermo, where he was receiving treatment for cancer under a false identity. At the time of his capture, he had been living under various aliases, reportedly undergoing multiple surgeries to alter his appearance. While Denaro himself was found, the full scope of his support network, the individuals who hid him, and the officials who may have enabled his freedom remain under investigation. Yaser Abdel said fatally shot his 2 teenage daughters, Amina and Sarah, in his taxicab on New Year's Day in 2008 in Irving, Texas. The girls had reportedly told friends and school counselors that they feared their father and that he had been abusive. After the shootings, said disappeared. He was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list in 2014. For 12 years, investigators pursued tips that placed him in New York, Texas, and even Egypt. In August 2020, federal agents arrested said in Justin, Texas, a town fewer than 40 miles from Irving. He had been hiding in a small, insular network composed of his son and brother, who were also arrested for harboring a fugitive. Said had never left the state. He had lived in a series of nondescript residences and a concealed room behind a false wall in his brother's home. The case challenges assumptions about international flight. Some of the FBI's most wanted individuals remain hidden not in distant countries, but within family units that refuse cooperation with authorities, sometimes within miles of their crimes. Eugene Palmer is wanted for the 2012 murder of his daughter-in-law, Tammy Palmer, in Stony Point, New York. Palmer allegedly shot her twice in the head after she arrived to drop off her children at his home for a visit. He fled the scene in his Ford F-150, which was found days later near Harriman State Park, a vast and heavily forested area. Palmer was an experienced outdoorsman and hunter familiar with the terrain. Authorities conducted extensive searches using dogs, helicopters, and thermal imaging, but found no trace. In 2019, Palmer was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Investigators believe he may have died in the wilderness shortly after the murder, succumbed to the elements, or taken his own life. Alternatively, he could have been aided by individuals who provided him with transportation and shelter. Palmer suffers from diabetes, which would require ongoing medication and care. His age at the time of the crime, 73, makes prolonged survival in the wilderness unlikely. The FBI continues to classify him as a fugitive, but no confirmed sightings have occurred in over a decade. Isnilon Totoni Hapilon was the leader of the Abu Sayyaf Group, a militant Islamist organization operating in the southern Philippines. He was indicted in the United States for his role in the 2001 kidnapping of American missionaries Martin and Gracia Burnham, during which Martin was killed. The U.S. government designated him a specially designated global terrorist and placed him on the FBI's most wanted terrorists list with a reward of $5 million. Hapilon pledged allegiance to ISIS and became the emir of the Islamic State's Southeast Asia Division. In 2017, he played a central role in the Siege of Marawi, a 5-month battle between ISIS-affiliated fighters and the Philippine military that left over 1,000 people dead and displaced hundreds of thousands of residents. Hapilon was killed by Philippine forces during the final assault in October 2017. While Hapilon was eventually found and eliminated, the question of how he evaded U.S. and Philippine forces for over 16 years, despite extensive intelligence operations, remains unanswered. His network facilitated bombings, kidnappings, and beheadings across Mindanao, and key facilitators within that network were never fully identified or prosecuted. Ayman al-Zawahiri succeeded Osama bin Laden as the leader of al-Qaeda in 2011. He was indicted for his role in the 1998 U.S. embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, which killed 224 people. The FBI placed him on the most wanted terrorists list with a reward of up to $25 million. Despite the killing of bin Laden in 2011 and the aggressive targeting of al-Qaeda's leadership structure, Zawahiri evaded capture for over 2 decades. He released periodic video and audio messages, often commenting on geopolitical events, but his exact location was never confirmed. Intelligence agencies believed he was hiding along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, likely in areas controlled by sympathetic tribal groups or under the protection of elements within Pakistani intelligence. On July 31, 2022, the CIA conducted a drone strike in Kabul, Afghanistan, killing Zawahiri on the balcony of a safe house. He was 71 years old. The strike revealed that Zawahiri had been sheltered by senior Taliban officials, despite the Taliban's claims that al-Qaeda no longer operated in Afghanistan. While Zawahiri was found, the mechanisms that allowed him to remain hidden for 24 years, including state and non-state actors who provided him sanctuary, were never fully exposed. The act of vanishing does not erase a crime, but it transforms accountability into mythology. Each of these individuals, whether found after decades or still at large, represents a gap in the architecture of justice, a reminder that even in a surveilled world, disappearance remains possible. Their absences are as defining as their crimes. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe for more case-driven analysis of criminal history's most unresolved chapters.